Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Bill Douglas. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Kathy, how you
I'm so
doing?
glad to see you. It's been a couple years. I went back and figured I think it was 2022 that was the last time we
Time
got to do
flies.
this. Darn.
Yeah, time is just getting faster and faster.
It
Like
is.
you
It
just,
is. So Bill, I'm so excited that we did connect because I know you're super busy with all that you do. Uh, but I want everyone to know about World Tai Chi and Qigong Day that's coming up. Could you want to tell us a little bit, maybe give everyone a little bit of idea of the history of how it developed
yeah,
and what's in store for them?
yeah. Okay, World Tai Chi Day is in a couple of weeks. It's always the last Saturday of April every year because we always wanted it on Saturday so that more people could participate. But it's April 26th this year. So on April 26th, we've had events in over 90 countries, hundreds of cities in over 90 countries around the planet. And they're free public teach-ins and exhibitions. So the public is invited. They're all free, and they're in cities all over the world. And people who've never done Tai Chi and Qigong can come and participate in these events. And some of them have teach-ins, some of them just have exhibitions of different schools and things like that. And we all come together in a 24-hour World Tai Chi movement. So it starts in the earliest time zones in New Zealand or the Polynesian nations that might come before that, because sometimes they have events too. And then it'll spread 10 a.m., 10 a.m., all the way around the planet through Asia, Africa, Europe, and then through the United States. And it ends with the final event in Kauai, Hawaii. And I was there for it one year in Kauai, Hawaii. And the motto of the event is one world, one breath. And so we created these World Tai Chi Day t-shirts because we had to cover the cost somehow. It was breaking our bank account to pay for all of it ourselves. And on the back, it has one world, one breath in 41 languages. And that motto is on posters and t-shirts and stuff, all with groups all over the planet. So it plants this idea of one world, one breath, because the root of Qigong is breathing exercise. And so these events will spread all the way around the planet. And events have gotten government bodies to officially proclaim World Tai Chi and Qigong Day for their city or nation or whatever. The National Congress of Brazil had a moment of silence to commemorate it one year. And and then also we've got what we did was we taught Tai Chi and Qigong teachers how to get media attention for their events. And so in our site, we have a page to help them do that and get connected to media. And we've reached, we did an analysis of all the media coverage of it, and we've reached over 1 billion mass media readers and viewers with information and science about Tai Chi and Qigong. But over the years, that's expanded because there was a huge event in Cairo, Egypt, organized by a visionary named Mohammed Essa. And that really got us thinking because, and it wasn't just him, but he was the biggest example. He had thousands of people at his event. And he introduced everybody to Tai Chi and Qigong, all these thousands of people. But he also had yoga teachers and mindfulness teachers and meditation teachers, and they had Sufi dancers there too, because that's a transcendental meditative form as well, and that takes you into the alpha brainwave state, like all the big five mind body practices do. And then that's when we realized that when we come together as a mind body community, we can do these huge things. And so we started collecting the science on all the big five, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. So when you go to the World Tai Chi and Qigong Day Tai Chi and Qigong medical directory, you can look up 100 common health conditions that people have, and then click on it, and you'll see all the science for Tai Chi, Qigong, and also yoga, meditation, and mindfulness, so that people see this possibility for their lives. And then, eventually that led to the Global Transformation Project, but we can get to that later.
Oh, cool. Okay, so I want to ask your experience because you and your wife Angela have been teaching Tai Chi all these years. Could you tell everyone a little bit how you, I mean, because you're passionate about it, how did this all start? Where was it you realized that breath was life and that's what started it, or what
Yeah.
was the reason that you got so passionate about all this?
Yeah, yeah. Looking back, it's kind of a lifelong journey, and I had some extraordinary consciousness experiences that really brought home what you just mentioned about the breath being the core of all these things. And but on a purely physical level, what these experiences led to some events that happened later in my life. After one of them was that before I started teaching, and I was just doing mind body practices for myself, I was getting such incredible benefit. I was feeling so much better on so many levels that I became kind of an evangelist for this. I wasn't planning on teaching at the time. I figured people could go to my teacher if they want to learn how to do it. But every time my family would have get-togethers, when I would show up, I'd start talking, and they go, "Oh no, we're got to listen to this again." And, and anyway, a couple of things happened. One is that I just landed my first gig teaching mind body in a major health system, Shawnee Mission Medical Center in Kansas City. And that was the first hospital class that I had. This was like getting close to 40 years ago. And what happened was it was for the public. It wasn't for the doctors or the staff, but a whole bunch of doctors were really curious because this stuff was really weird in healthcare back then. They were wanting to see what was going on. And it started blowing their minds. They were getting off medications they'd been on for years. There was a surgeon in there who had chronic pain and limited mobility from a whiplash injury. And, being a surgeon, she'd been through every Western medical therapy. After 8 weeks in this program, they were getting off these meds, and she got full mobility, no more chronic pain, no pain meds anymore, that kind of stuff. And it was blowing their minds. And so this is before Google, or I knew about Google. And they went to their hospital database and they started finding medical research and handing it to me. And at first I was thinking, well, why are they giving this to me? I'm a Tai Chi teacher. I'm not a doctor. But that stack got bigger and I couldn't ignore it anymore. And then I eventually got a contract from Macmillan Publishing to write the Complete Idiot's Guide to Tai Chi and Qigong. And so I started putting this science in there. And then that led me to write about this science in other books that we can talk about later.
Yeah.
But anyway, the what happened, there was a synchronicity that happened because right when I started teaching that hospital class, I was digging through my basement and I came across this note that my mother had written the night before she passed away. She had a premonition that she wasn't going to survive this simple procedure that she was having the next day, and that we were assured wasn't a big deal. And anyway, after she passed away, my sisters went through her hospital room and they found a note. She'd written a note to all of us. But the very first part of the note, she said it was addressed to me. And she said, I wish I could go back a few years and learn these arts of relaxation that you'd tried to teach me, because I really would have loved to have lived to see my grandchildren grow up.
Oh,
And I read that right when I started those hospital classes. And I was seeing these old doctors, because I was pretty young at that time. I was seeing these old doctors get off all these meds. And I was thinking, holy cow, my parents could have lived a lot longer. You know what I mean? And so then I started taking all this medical research and trying to send it to media all over the world. And they just weren't interested in it. And then I was meditating one day and I got this idea. Try to get as many people as possible to a beautiful local place, the Nelson Atkins Art Museum in Kansas City, and then try to get the media to show up and tell them that you're going to have the biggest collection of Tai Chi people doing all Tai Chi, because Tai Chi is very visually spectacular. In
mhm.
my meditation, it said they're going to want to point their cameras at it. A whole bunch of people doing that in front of a beautiful place. And so we organized, and we got 200 people to show up.
Wow.
Yeah, and all the local media showed up. And then that afternoon, we found out CNN had picked up the feed, and they called it the biggest gathering of Tai Chi outside of China. and and so then other Tai Chi groups started getting interested, and whoosh. I mean, it took a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but but people can work their whole lives really hard and not get the whole world to participate with something. There was something really magical about the way that it happened. So I'm not diminishing the amount of work that we put into it, but work doesn't do it. It was like something bigger. Yeah, the world. There were visionaries all over the planet that knew that it was time for the world to know about this stuff, and because they're not hearing about it in the mainstream media, because it doesn't make anybody billions of dollars to empower the population, with the ability to self-heal and to expand their consciousness and become more intelligent and more connective and be able to do much larger things. That doesn't make money, uh, you know.
Well, in some ways it may in the long run, but right now it doesn't. So that's what we
Well,
can
but I
only
mean,
hope.
that's why we don't see it on the mainstream media culture right now. Because the
Right,
only thing you see on that is what makes people billions of dollars.
right. Drugs and
Yeah,
all of that.
exactly. Yep.
That whole philosophy that you're just a machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Not a
wanted
healing machine.
you're yeah, it's a miracle, isn't it?
Yeah.
The I want to ask about during the lockdown how you navigated all this. I also am friends with the Jonathan and Andy Goldman,
Hmm.
and they have World Sound Healing Day.
Beautiful.
And during the lockdown, what they did is they invited people to sign up on their website, and they had a whole list of all the locations, and it spread. It
Mhm.
actually spread because people wanted to be on that list. What did you do during, because yours is,
Well,
it's a group activity.
yeah, yeah. Well, for me, it was a whole different experience because, all of a sudden, all my mind body classes were shut down.
Mhm,
I yeah, and for a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong schools went out of business.
mhm,
In fact, a half a billion small businesses went out of business during lockdowns. And then World Tai Chi Day shut down because people couldn't come together. And so I have this book called The Gospel of Science. It's in second edition. We'll talk about it later. But in this, I confess what happened to me during the lockdowns. Because what happened to me was I had no classes. I was doing what most people were doing. I was sitting there watching the cable news all day long, and it was all horror and fear-based, making you think that, the world was going to end if you didn't watch it all day long. And I got all stressed out and I stopped practicing this stuff that has changed my life several times. And I just had, I just got to a point where I had like a breakdown, and I just turned off the media and I just threw there was a combination of things. I started working on this book towards the end, and it was reminding me of the science that shows how powerful this stuff is, mind body practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. And so I started throwing myself back into this stuff and turning off the media and getting out in nature and all this kind of stuff. And then I had this epiphany, and uh, I just realized that the whole planet is going through a huge change. Stress is such a huge thing. It was during the lockdowns, and it still is. We're post-pandemic stress disorder is a huge thing. We're all dealing with trying to work all this stuff out. And so as I'm working on this Gospel of Science second edition and immersing in all this science, it becomes absolutely obvious to me that we could solve so many of the world's problems by getting mind-body education into public education worldwide. And so that whole kind of breakdown of what happened to me, it was kind of like a fertile ground of chaos for something whole new to be born out of this. And so then we launched the Global Transformation Project, based on the science in the Gospel of Science, 700 pages of meticulously end-noted science, because I knew people wouldn't believe this stuff. It's too good to be true.
So
and and
should I
so
go
we
ahead?
got.
Should I go ahead and show the page real quick?
Yeah, that'd
I'll
be
have to
awesome.
let me grab it again. There it is. Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure that people have a visual so that they can really um, grab on to
Yeah, that's
what you're
great.
saying?
Yeah, so this is well, this is my author. Let's go to the Global Transformation Project first, and then we can come back here.
The
Yeah,
Global
yeah,
Transformation
that's the one.
Project?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So all this science led to my launching the Global Transformation Project. So this all came out of the chaos and my kind of own personal breakdown during the lockdowns and all that. But anyway, the Global Transformation Project. What we're doing is we're building a global coalition of mind-body enthusiasts, practitioners, teachers, organizations, and also leading minds in science, health, and education. Now, if you go back to the top there, I want to show them some tabs. Okay, so what you see here, we don't have to click on them, but I'm just going to talk
Okay.
about them for a
Okay.
second. Okay, first of all, you will see the science on education. So we've been collecting this science for nearly 3 decades. And what you'll see when you click on this is that it's insane that we're not teaching this in public education all over the world. And that's what the goal of Global Transformation Project is. And we have a plan that's workable. But what you'll see, when you guys go click on this later at your convenience, is you'll see that regular meditation increases IQs by 20 points, increases GRA reading scores, math proficiency skills, verbal fluency. It reduces bullying. Test scores go up. And what you'd be doing if you were teaching this to public education kids K through 12 is you would be having a whole generation of mind-body masters. Hypertension, diabetes, a lot of this stuff would just be in the history books. And this is all science driven. And also, it affects the larger community. Our consciousness doesn't stop at our skull. So we have data and research that shows how when people practice these coherent consciousness states, it actually ripples out through the world and has a positive impact on the city and the world around us. Now, supporters and scientists, you guys can click on this later, but we have some leading minds in mind, body, and science on here that are supporting this United Nations resolution. It's non-binding. Nobody'd be forced to do it. No country would be forced to do it or anything like that. But we'd use the UN as a vehicle, the General Assembly as a vehicle to get this science out with a recommendation to public educators around the planet that their students would vastly benefit from having mind-body practice as part of their uh, teaching, public education teaching, because study after study shows tests there. But anyway, we've got Dr. Peter Wayne of Harvard Medical School is one of our supporters. Dr. Roger Nelson, who is the director of research at the famous Princeton Pear Labs for 20 years.
Wow.
And the list just goes on and on. And so we pulled all this together because we wanted people that come here and sign this petition to know that they've got a real movement of real people and real science behind this. And then we also have a tab here, mind body education in schools. And that shows where it's already happening in schools with great success. And so, a lot of people, when they see this, they go, well, I'm old. Why do I care whether kids do it in school? Well, because our economy you're affected by our economy. And what the science shows is if we were teaching public education kids how to do this, it would save trillions of dollars year after year after year. Now that's gonna be good for your future Social Security, right? If our country has trillions and trillions of extra dollars to play with, and so you've got a vested interest in this. I don't care how old you are.
Well, the thing is we want to leave the world a better place. So of
Yes,
course,
that too.
you know,
And so yeah, if you want to go back over to you're absolutely right, Kathy. And the science shows that when we do things for the better good, I have it all in the book. If you want to go to the Gospel of Science, yeah, there you go.
oh,
That's the second edition of the book. That's good right there. And yeah, I get into that. What the research shows is that when we do things for the greater good, it actually heals our DNA. Our DNA expression becomes more healthful when
yep,
we do things for the greater good. So this,
useful
yeah,
too,
so
huh?
that's the book. Yeah.
Well, can I read this testimonial for you?
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that I
Okay.
love that review
So,
from the
so
United Kingdom.
again, the book is called The Gospel of Science, and it's the second edition, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
let me tell them what the whole title is. The
okay.
Gospel of Science, mind-blowing new science on ancient truths to heal our stress lives and planet. And that's not hyperbole. If you read this book, you'll know that that's true.
Yes, cool. Okay, so I'm going to read this review from Mr. Edmund Lloyd West, and he did it in the UK on March 4th, 2022. Okay, so and this is his review of the book. Brave, ambitious, philosophical, inspiring, and uplifting. This labor of love, in quotations, is the most complete and comprehensive blueprint for the healing and evolution of our wonderful planet and all the life forms therein. I highlighted the word labor as this implies hard work. Bill Douglas is all about love and light, and this book exudes the joy that he must have experienced in producing it, as well as the painstaking and well-referenced research that he assembled. I feel privileged to have read and learned so much from this work and have recommended it to many people. There is much work to be done by us all, but it has already been kick-started by great thinkers in human history, upon the shoulders of whom more contemporary enlightened figures are building momentum. Bill Douglas is a momentum builder. And again, this was Mr. Edmund Lloyd West.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention, he mentioned the great thinkers. This book is built on science that has been done, through the course of our lifetimes. And these scientists have put their careers on the line because studying consciousness affecting the body or the world, which it does when you look at the science, that is taboo. That has been taboo. It's actually there was Dr. Kelly from the University of Virginia. He was on a program with John Cleese, the Monty Python comedian, who's really interested in consciousness stuff.
Isn't
And
it interesting?
yeah. You can find it on YouTube. It's really, really entertaining and informative. But anyway, Dr. Kelly, he confides in there in that talk that when he decided to go into consciousness research, all of his scientific friends and coworkers, they said, "You're going to destroy your career."
Right.
And so the thing that I just wish I could get the mind body community to realize, because I get a lot of mind body people that and teachers and stuff that I reach out to with the Global Transformation Project, getting this into schools, and and it's like they don't grasp how important the science is, that shows how incredibly powerful these things can be. And if I could just convey to people that people put their careers, their livelihoods on the line to make this science happen. They knew that we needed to know the power of our consciousness and the power of mind-body practices to unleash the power of our consciousness that would be life transformative and globally transformative. And so that's what this book does. This book, it celebrates those scientists. And what you realize as you're reading it is, or I hope people do, is that I think I mentioned it in the book, but we're the first generation in the history of humanity that has all this validating hard science that shows that we could change our lives, our health, and our whole planet with this. No generation has had this in the history of humanity. Now, the thing that Organizing World Tai Chi and Qigong Day showed us is that there are effective mind-body teachers in virtually every city all over the planet. See, I didn't know this. I grew up in Western Kansas. I didn't know that, massive amounts of people were doing Tai Chi all over Iran and Israel and, virtually all over Africa, and doing yoga and meditation. It's everywhere. It's spread all the way around the planet. And in fact, while that's been happening over the years that, about 40 years that this has been happening, violent crime rates have been dropping in the United States and in many countries around the world. Now, people that watch the news every day, they think I'm insane when I say that, but it's FBI data, and it's in this book because that's an important thing. As mind-body teachers, we need to be educating the public, the people that we teach, that the world is not this horrible, evil, scary place, and people
Right.
are not horrible and evil out to get you. They're actually really good. And so violent crime rates are dropping at 40-year lows. The planet Earth is vastly less violent than at any time in world history. Now, there are violent things going on, and we're upset about it, and we should be. But we need to keep it in perspective because the vision of possibility that we hold, the science shows that's what's going to unfold the future that we want. And so this science should be honored and it should be spread by the world mind body community so that as many people as possible know about this
Well,
as they
I
can.
I really see this as part of the path to peace. We're entering the Aquarian age, and somehow miraculously, humans are going to go from these warring, fearful beings to this. They say there's going to be 1,000 years of peace on
Mhm.
our planet,
Well,
and
it's happening
this
already.
is one
Yeah.
of the paths to peace, right?
Right, right. And what the book shows people, and this is really important for people to see this science and the data because it changes the way that we see things. Yeah, this is already happening. Like I said, violent crime rates are at 40-year lows. The news won't tell us about this because it's all fear-based.
Right,
And I get into this in the book. I get into this, the media people, they know this, when they release stress chemicals in us, that we get addicted to watching the programming because we get kind of a high off of it. And there was actually a CNN executive that was caught on video, and he said that fear sells. We sell fear. And so, what you're talking about, this global transformation, it's already happening.
right.
There's this bubbling revolution of consciousness happening all over the planet, and you're like Gil Scott Heron said, the revolution is not going to be televised.
Right.
And so it's happening, and you can learn all about it in this book and be really inspired by it. Because I was just telling you, Kathy, before we came on, it just came out on Audible, the Gospel of Science second edition, and I think I'm on my fifth pass through it. It came out a few months ago on Audible, and at first I just wanted to get on there and make sure there weren't any mistakes because it was AI. It's read by AI, but it's really good. My daughter, when I sent the clip to her, she said, "Oh, he sounds really intelligent," and uh, but uh, uh, but as you're going through it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, tell them a little bit about how they can get the book and what you're doing for right now.
Yeah, the book's available on Amazon Audible, and I highly recommend that. Now it's 14.99 on Amazon Audible, and unfortunately, that's only available to Americans, the Audible part. But the paperback and Kindle version are available as well. Now, what I realized when I first bought the Audible was because I had bought the Kindle version through Amazon because I always buy it after it comes out so I can look through it and make sure everything's good. And so I had bought the Kindle version. So when I went on to buy the Audible, it said because you bought the Kindle version, you get the Audible for $2. And so so if you get the Kindle version, then you'll have all the graphics and text and everything, and then you can get the Audible for $2 more. So you will get the Kindle version and the Audible cheaper than just the Audible because the Audible is 14.99. So so for like 12 something, 12, $13, you can get
That's
both.
great.
Yeah, and
That's great.
yeah, and it's available through most booksellers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay, so we're going back to okay, so you're in lockdown, you write this book and you're already on your second edition of it. What
Yeah.
did you change in it to make a second edition?
It changed massively. It's virtually a whole other book. It has a lot of the science from the first book, but the way that it's portrayed evolved a lot, as we were going through all this and becoming more aware of these things. And so uh, some of the mind-bending science wasn't available to me when I wrote the first edition. And what happened was in 2007, I learned about the Global Consciousness Project, which was a research project by the past 20-year director of research at the famous Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory, Dr. Roger Nelson. And I had contacted them in 2007, and I said because what they did, they found out that consciousness could affect computers, and so they created these computers called random event generators. They flip a coin 200 times per second, so ones and zeros. And so what you get normally is you get about 50-50. It kind of fluctuates, but it's around 50-50. That's what keeps the lights on in Las Vegas. If you didn't have statistical probability, there wouldn't be any casinos. That's a reality that humanity recognizes. But what they found was that people could affect it. They could make the ones or zeros go different directions. And so then they started taking these random event generators to like cathedral mass or a symphony or an opera. And what they found was that when people were together in coherent consciousness, it sent their things off the chart where they would diverge from expectation. And so they were able to detect a coherence of consciousness. And then they took it to a shopping mall. Nothing. Because in a shopping mall, everybody's in the normal world that we live in, right? Buy this, get this, do this, that, yeah, da, 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 all that stuff. And but when people came together in coherent consciousness, so then I didn't know it at the time, but they had started looking at global consciousness events. And but in 2007, I contacted them. I said, we organize this thing called World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. People do it all over the world, the same 24-hour period, because you look at your things. They said, oh, yeah, we could look at it. And they never got back to us. And so I was like really disappointed, and I thought, oh, well, move on, keep organizing, keep getting people to do Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation, mindfulness, and yoga. But then after I had that, see, it was kind of my collapse during the pandemic that got me to pull out the first edition of the Gospel of Science. And then all of that science, started inspiring me, to get away from the TV news and to meditate and stuff. And so then all kinds of ideas came to me. And one of them was, I think I'm going to write this second edition. And I think I'm going to contact the Global Consciousness Project because even though World Tai Chi and Qigong Day didn't affect global consciousness, maybe we didn't have enough people, I don't know. But I know that they've been looking at other mind body events, so I can put that in the book. Even though World Tai Chi and Qigong Day didn't do it, and they got back to me right away this time. They said, "Oh yeah, we've been looking at hundreds of these things," and right at the top was World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. And then World Yoga Day, World Peace Meditation Day, and these things. And I get into all this in the book, and I show the data. And we had what the way that Dr. Nelson describes it is we had measurably increased coherence in global consciousness. So
Beautiful.
not just for the Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation people, for the entirety of humanity. And what the TM Foundation research, I get into all this in the book. This is all valid, solid science that you should be hearing about on the news, but you're not. But what the TM Foundation found in these big, huge studies they did, and they collaborated like with the Washington D. Police on the first study, and what they found is that they brought in the equivalent of 1% of high-level meditators of a population, that they dramatically reduced the violent crime rates. In Washington, D.C., they brought it down 23% during the high crime season. And so that all became part of this book. And then this book showed how not only could we change people's health and well-being and our economy and all this kind of stuff through saved health costs, but we could also be transforming the planet. Because another thing that happened right around that time when I found out about the Global Consciousness Project, I was invited to do a mind-body presentation at Folsom Prison in California.
Wow.
That was my first maximum security prison teaching, but I've done several since then. And I thought I was going to be introducing them to mind body. But what I found out was that Judy Trethway, she had started a Tai Chi Cha program at Folsom 2 years before I got there. And she's the one that invited me. And so when I got there, uh, it was an incredible experience. I'd never been in I was in jail when I was young, but I'd never been in a maximum security prison. And it was really intimidating. But when I got into the chapel where they had this Tai Chi Chuan program, it was just so calm. And there was no racial segregation. You had Native Americans, Hispanics, white, black people. They were all doing Tai Chi Chuan together. All that stuff disappeared in this place. And anyway, what was so huge about that experience was that one of the inmates, James Heckley, who is a Qigong teacher now, he's out of Folsom, and he was one of the Tai Chi Cha teachers in this group, assistant teacher, and he had been keeping prison statistics during that 2 years, and the recidivism rate, the return to prison rate for the Tai Chi Cha, the Qigong meditation group, it had gone from the normal 70% down to 30%.
Wow.
What that showed me is we could be emptying our prisons. the prison system is a money-making industry. It does not have to exist at the level that it exists. That was the big thing that lit up in me. But the huge thing was that what the data showed was that the incident rates, which is the behavior rates, fights, contraband, all that kind of stuff, that the incident rates dropped for the whole prison. And then that's when I started looking at the TM Foundation, where 1% of a population going into coherent consciousness has a positive effect on the whole psychology. So imagine if hundreds of millions of school children all over the planet start going into coherent consciousness, because children are actually in coherent consciousness, alpha brainwave state most of the time up to about age 7. So it's the most natural thing in the world. Teaching kids mind body isn't teaching them some weird foreign Eastern mystical thing. It's teaching them how to stay in touch with that natural life energy and that coherent state of consciousness that they're in when they're a child. That's why a kid gets up every morning and sees the world as a whole new adventure. And they
Right.
can't wait to dive into it. And they heal way faster and they learn way faster. Once we lose touch with that, all that stuff, that magic starts to go away. But we can bring it back and we can foster it in our children. It's the most natural thing in the world.
So I want to ask a question just because I don't know the athleticism of my audience,
Uh-huh.
and whether they walk all the time or do regular exercise. Could you share a little bit about how people could get started with Tai Chi or Qigong at any age, and what the besides the meditative calmness and
Mm-hmm.
the breath, what the benefits of that would be?
Yeah, yeah. As far as how to get involved in it, if you go to worldtaichiday.org, we have a directory of World Tai Chi and Qigong Day events, which is mostly Tai Chi and Qigong schools around the planet.
Okay.
But it's not comprehensive, though. I mean, not every World Tai Chi and Qigong Day event actually lists, but that's a place where you can start. You can go there and search the directory for your zip code or your country or whatever.
Okay,
But
I'll
then,
put that up too.
yeah, but then also you can check with your local hospitals because I teach through the University of Kansas Health System. In fact, I have a Zoom class. I have 2 Zoom classes through the University of Kansas Health System Turning Point Center for Hope and Healing. And if you Google that, if anybody that has a chronic health condition can get into my Zoom classes for free.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so just Google, they're twice a week. So just Google University of Kansas Health System Turning Point Center for Hope and Healing. But also check with your local hospitals as well, because there's going to be local schools there. We don't all teach it exactly the same way, and that's okay. Yeah, I hope anybody that has a chronic health condition will come to my Zoom classes. You'll get a lot of benefit from it. But also find local groups so that you can have a local Tai Chi community or a local mind body community. Because, like at our hospital, through our Turning Point program, they have yoga teachers, meditation teachers, biofeedback, all kinds of stuff. So investigate that way, and then just Google, and look up local mind body teachers, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and also go to YouTube. There's a lot of free stuff on YouTube, and so we have a YouTube channel it's all free. If you go to your YouTube app on your TV, don't watch it on your computer. It's more relaxing on your TV. And then search at YouTube at Global Transformation Project, all one word, the @ sign, Global Transformation Project. And we have tutorials. We have our interviews with leading scientists on the power of consciousness, and that'll unfold and unlock a bigger possibility for your Tai Chi and for your mind body practice, whatever the big 5 you practice, because you'll know in your mind that it can do things. And then that'll free it up to actually have a bigger benefit. So yeah, there's tons of resources out there.
So, if people want to experience it, they can go and find you on YouTube. They can go to University of Kansas Turning Point Center for Hope and Healing
Yeah, you put in University of Kansas Health System Turning Point Center
Health
for Hope and
System.
Healing.
Okay,
Yeah, and
and then they also they can check out um,
Tai Chi,
Tai Chi and
worldtaichiday.org,
Tai Chi
worldtaichiday.org.
and Qigong. Yeah, that's why I just showed the website.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So people can find it. It's worldtaichiday.org. We don't want to confuse people that because you've got so much resources here, but we really want people to know about World Tai Chi and Qigong Day right now because that'll if you get involved and see the passion that Bill is showing you his passion, but almost everyone that gets addicted to this,
And
it gets
also,
practice.
if people don't see a World Tai Chi and Qigong Day event in our directory at worldtaichiday.org in their city, uh, don't think that that's necessarily means there's not one. So just go on Google and Google World Tai Chi Day, your city, or however you
Okay.
can localize it. And then also if that doesn't work, just Google Tai Chi and Qigong for your city and then contact those local Tai Chi and Qigong groups and just ask them, do you know of any groups that are holding World Tai Chi Day events? Because I want to participate. And then what'll happen is if they're not holding one and they get a couple of calls, then what'll happen in their mind is they'll go, wow, I should be organizing a World Tai Chi Day event.
The reverse
Yeah.
motivator. Okay,
But
so
one thing I
but
wanted to mention real quick, because you had asked about, the benefits. Yeah. And that's what if you get the Gospel of Science second edition on Audible, you'll hear all the science and all these benefits. And just to keep it real short and succinct, because I could go through tons of stuff. But what the science shows is that up to 90% of the health issues that we're dealing with, and that includes organic dysfunction, diabetes, hypertension, all these things, heart disease, you name it, the whole body. 90% of these illnesses are caused by chronic unmanaged stress. And the science shows that they're best prevented or treated by mind body practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. And so there's nobody that can't benefit from this. If you don't have a chronic illness, start doing this now so you won't have one. If you do have one, start doing this now so that you might not have it anymore.
oh,
And, I,
that's
and, I, and I've
perfect.
seen I've seen people in my classes, it blows their doctors' minds. How they're able to, because the doctors, when they give people a diagnosis, usually the prognosis is you're stuck with this, buddy. You're going to be on this drug or whatever for the rest of your life. And that's just kind of where it's all left hanging when you walk out of the doctor's office. Those doctors should be telling people about mind body. They're not educated in mind body science. I've done presentations for interns and graduating medical doctors. They're not taught anything about any of this stuff, and that is, it is, it's mind-boggling. Like I said, my parents didn't have to die at the age they died at. If they would have had a doctor saying do this stuff that your crazy kids trying to get you to do because there's science on it, you know. It would have been a whole different thing. Yeah,
Well, I wanted to reassure people that you can do it at any age. That was the other
absolutely.
thing is that just because somebody else, it's not like karate and some of the martial arts where there's a lot of competitiveness, where there's, a black belt or brown belt, or you have to earn your right to be in a certain class of participants. This is something that you can do, as Bill said, put it on a YouTube and put in your living room and just start trying to
Yeah.
follow along and
And
the
there's Zoom classes out there. Dr. David Dorian Ross, Tai Chi Fit. And Dr. Roger Yonka does online stuff. And then I have my online course. And yeah, Tai Chi and Qigong and probably yoga too. It's the lowest impact exercise that you can do. It's amazing because I'll get students like there's a doctor in one of my classes who was recovering from surgery. And I said, I had surgery once. I got away from all this stuff many years ago, and I got really sick. I had to get emergency surgery, but the doctor was amazed. I had to go to Mexico because I didn't have health insurance, so I went down to Mexico to get surgery. Uh, because I was in a critical situation. It
uh,
was a digestive block, And so I went down there, and then after the surgery, I was doing my meditation, my qigong meditation, and then I would get up with the IV tube in my arm, and I'd stand by my bed, and I'd go through just real gentle moving meditation, because I had an abdominal incision, and so it was real gentle, but I was doing it in a real gentle way. Well, anyway, this Mexican doctor, he started bringing in other doctors, and they were all looking at me and chattering, and I was like starting to freak out. I was thinking, oh my God, what's going on here? And after a group of doctors left, I asked the nurse, because the nurse was pretty bilingual, and I said, "How come he's bringing all these doctors in?" And the nurse said, "Oh, he said they've never seen an incision heal as fast as yours has." And so I was telling this doctor in my Zoom class about this, and he said, "Oh, I can't do that stuff. My doctor said I can't do it." And I said, "Well, you might talk to him, let him know that you can do it real gentle, And I was telling him a story about what happened to me in Mexico, and he goes, "No, I can't do it. My doctor said can't do it." He said, "My doctor said I can only walk a mile a day. I can't do the qigong stuff." And I'm like, these doctors are so ignorant, so ignorant. It reminds me of that Star Trek episode where Dr. McCoy, they have to come back to planet Earth to try to fix something.
Yeah.
And so they come back to planet Earth, I think in the past, or maybe it was at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, Dr. McCoy runs up to Captain Kirk, and he goes, "Captain Kirk," he goes, "you got to help me." He goes, "We're in this hospital." He goes, "There's this room. They're going to cut this man open."
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. Well, again, I wanted to make sure that people understood that this is a gift you give yourself. And I do think that medicine is in transition, just like every other industry in the world, because I know that there's a push in a lot of hospitals for nurses to learn Reiki and other ways without using drugs to alleviate pain for their patients. And so there is hope that so much of this common sense ancestral knowledge, basically, that we were conditioned out of will be re-entered into our normal societal practices where people will be empowered. And that's part of the reason I was so excited to have Bill back again is I really see us as in this time of change of getting out of victimization and getting back into our own personal power for ourselves, for the planet, for our loved ones. And you can't do that if you're a victim. You can't.
Well, yeah, one thing that I want to, just what you're talking about is so important for people to get. And one of the things, like I said, I highly encourage people. This is the ebook version is going to be free on World Tai Chi Day and on World Yoga Day and on World Peace Meditation Day. But I encourage people, if you want to contribute to what we're trying to do here, if you get the Audible book, then we'll get a part of what Amazon doesn't keep. And it's 23 hours of listening. And, of course, you're not going to sit down and listen to 23 hours, but you'll have entertainment that you can tune into when you're cleaning your house or driving your car or whatever. And what this will do is it will empower you because you'll realize what you're talking about, Kathy, that we have huge options. And, no matter how old we are, I always tell my students in my Zoom classes in the hospital, all that matters is where we start today. Where we start today. Things can change. We can improve in huge ways. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. We can eat more vegetables, more fruits. We can get less seed oils in our diet, which is really important to do. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see some things on seed oils. And we can start practicing these powerful mind-body practices. And then what the book will keep pumping into our brains, just like it did me, is that we're a self-healing machine. Now, what I tell my students is get the Audible and listen to it in your spare time when you have some relaxing time or driving time, because what you're getting from mass media is you're getting pharmaceutical ads 24/7 pumped into your brain. Now, it used to be illegal for them to advertise pharmaceuticals because people knew that it was insane to have advertise. There's only two countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical ads, the United States and New Zealand. This is a new thing. I think it started under Bill Clinton, who I voted for. But anyway, but but anyway, so we got, like we were talking about programming ourselves. We're being programmed constantly. Dr. Joe Dispenza's beautiful work in this area. I highly encourage everybody to look at Dr. Joe Dispenza. But this book helps us reprogram when we listen to it, instead of just hearing those horrible pharmaceutical ads that make you think that your whole world is going to be so rosy and cool if you just get that drug. And trust me, it doesn't work the way that they show it in the advertisements. There's books on this. There's a great book called Sickened by one of the top doctors in the world, and he talks about those pharmaceutical ads. But anyway, yeah, get the Audible of this, and it'll uplift you on so many levels. It'll be so self-empowering. And I know that sounds self-promotional, but like I said, I'm giving away the Kindle book on World Tai Chi Day, World Yoga Day, and World Peace Meditation Day in December. So I don't want that profiteering thing to inhibit anybody from getting this. You can get it for free, but the Audible I highly recommend if you can afford to get the Audible.
Perfect, perfect. So Bill, what we want people to do is figure out where they can get an experience with Qigong or Tai Chi,
Mhm.
and then if they can go to one of the events
Mhm.
on World Tai Chi and Qigong Day, and the excitement and the energy, I think,
Yeah.
will hook them. Because once they have the experience, I met you through Sharon Rose, and I helped her market her Qigong um, uh, video series, which I don't know where it is right now, but
Yes, it's
anyway,
coming out. It's coming out as a documentary, Quantum Chi,
Quantum
and
Chi.
yeah, yeah, and I've seen clips of it. I haven't seen the whole thing yet.
Oh,
This is a powerful,
yeah.
powerful, profound
Well,
documentary.
we had
Everybody,
a showing here probably 5 years ago or more, and I got about 40, 50 people to come see that version of the movie. I'm sure
oh,
it's changed a
it's
lot.
it's so
And
much
what
more
happens
extraordinary.
at the end of the movie, she brought a instructor here from Bali or from Southeast Asia, Amalia, and
Yeah,
they stood at the front of the room and got us all to experience it. And you wanted to. You
yeah.
could hardly stay in your seat at the end of it. And I know that if people show up to these activities, they're going to feel the same way
When
because
people,
there's something so natural that your body has been rigidly um, structured in these seats and these chairs on these
uh-huh,
computers, and
uh-huh.
it's not just dance, it's a slow poetic movement that actually brings this whole different love of life back to you, the
Yeah,
excitement of life, right?
yeah, it's surrendering to a natural flow. And Sharon Rose is such a talented cinematographer that she's able to artistically convey this natural flow of these practices. And yeah, like you said, while you're watching it, wait until you see this new version. You can't watch it without starting to, loosen up and kind of flow with it. And one development that's been very exciting for us is, and I hope everybody will help this Quantum Chi become a success, because that's just the beginning of Sharon's plans. She just announced recently in a global yoga thing celebrating Tai Chi and Qigong, healing our earth, that uh, as this documentary Quantum Chi gets out and starts generating some resources, her next documentary, Sharon doesn't do documentaries to get rich. She does documentaries because she wants to get money to make another documentary to educate the people about their own self-empowerment and the beautiful possibilities of our planet. Anyway, she just announced that once that gets launched, if some resources start being generated from it, her next project is documentary is going to be the Global Transformation Project.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Hey, that's perfect. So what we want everyone to understand is you don't have to have special clothing. You don't have to have special music. You don't have to have any equipment to speak of. You have to just stand up and move. And there's, ancient science that knew how the meridians worked in the body, how the energy flow works in the body that we forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. What I always tell people is, like I said, find local teachers, look on YouTube, start playing with all kinds of mind body stuff. There's treasures out there just waiting to be found. And the most important thing that will ensure that you stick with this is one, get educated on the science because that'll get your whole left brain to go, oh, okay, I know this stuff is great. Let me do it. But then when you do it, approach it just with an innocent curiosity, an open mind, an open heart, and a playful spirit. Because when Chinese people do Tai Chi and Qigong, they don't say, I'm going to go work out. Oh, I got to go do this because it's good for me. They say, I'm going to go play. I'm going to go play Tai Chi and I'm going to go play Qigong. And so it's that childlikeness that I was talking about earlier. When you go into alpha state, you start to, I see people in my classes, when they first start the classes, they're old. They're kind of old and kind of crotchety. And then, after a few months or a few years of doing this stuff, they're not like that anymore, and I've been both. There was a time many years ago when I got way away from all this stuff. I started drinking too much. I went through a massive stressful period. I'm not talking about the pandemic. This is way before that. And I got really sick and I got really crotchety and I got really grumpy. And then I just decided, you know what? If I'm gonna live, I'm just gonna just suck the marrow out of this life. And I just threw myself back into this stuff. And oh my God, magic started to happen. I'm as strong as I've ever been. I'm 68 years old now. I started going to the gym to get away from the computer, and I was always horrible at basketball in school. But after I wrote the second edition of the Gospel of Science and saw all the potential of mind body practice and throwing myself back into my mind body practice, not just teaching it, but really living it. And so I started going to the gym to get away from the computer and I started making a lot of shots and I never could make a shot when I was young. And then I was in there one day and there was a couple little kids and one of them elbowed his friend. He goes, "Hey, there's the guy that never misses." And so then yeah, so then I brought my video camera in and I videotaped myself shooting free throws and I made 46 out of 50. And then I went home and looked up the NBA statistics and I was out shooting most NBA players, people who spent their whole lives shooting baskets. I virtually never picked up a basketball for 60 years, once I had that horrible experience in school. And and I feel like Harry Potter. I mean, it's the wildest thing. And this focus that this stuff creates is huge and powerful. And it's not just about basketball, it's about how we do everything in our lives. And when you start doing this stuff, you're gonna start seeing yourself doing magical things. In my classes, people talk a lot about, things like some lady, she was working in the closet and a vase fell off the shelf and she was thinking, oh my God, it's going to shatter. I got to sweep it up. And then all of a sudden she just looked down and she realized it was in her hand. Her hand had just gone whoosh. Yeah, and that stuff, and on the science backs all this up. Yeah, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, they gave us a tour of their Tai Chi research lab when we were in Hong Kong, and what they found was that they had old people in two groups. One of them was the Tai Chi group, the other one was just old. There was an old Tai Chi group and just an old group, and then they had young people, and they were showing them things on a computer screen, and they were supposed to react. What they found was that the old Tai Chi group reacted just as fast as the young people did.
Yep, that's fantastic. Yep. So the 70s and new 50s or 50s and new 30s or whatever we want to say, but you have a choice of how you experience this physical reality.
A
And
lot of a lot of what we've been sold about getting old is a bunch of crap. We're sold this model of, yeah, we get old, we get this, we get that pharmaceutical, we get this pharmaceutical, and that's just the way it is, and we all laugh about it and we see the cool commercials on TV where everybody's dancing and singing. It's this whole delusionary mindset. But what I find personally, and I tell my students this all the time, if I go a couple of weeks without doing this stuff, I feel 20 years older. And then I start doing it, and within 2 or 3 days, I feel 20 years younger. Yeah.
Right.
And it's not just this. I do saunas. I have all this stuff on the website, all the things that have changed my life. I have it up there, dietary
Do we want
things.
to show your Tai Chi website?
It's actually on the YouTube at Global Transformation
Oh, okay.
Project
But I
where I
was
have all.
looking at the smarttaichi.com.
Yeah, well, Smart Tai Chi, it has my DVD and my
Should I
uh,
show that right now?
you can.
Okay.
But there's so many other places to get these things as well. But if anybody wants to get our DVD, it's highly acclaimed. It's a 4 hour program. You don't do it for 4 hours, but it breaks the Tai Chi form down into real digestible.
Oh, that is, you're creating a community of
Yeah,
people that are as passionate about their art as you are about yours.
yeah,
And that way there's a selection of choices for people, and they'll be personally directed by
yeah,
what they want to do, or they can do something for a while and then something else. What
yeah.
what um what I know is that this is the time we all came here for,
Mhm.
that to help as many people wake up to their divinity and to co-create the new earth. And
Mhm.
this World Tai Chi and Qigong Day is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Just like, as I had mentioned before, World Sound Healing Day, there's so many things that are available to us to make a difference in the world and to be in community with like-minded people that
Yeah.
also feel that way. So you don't feel alone, you don't feel isolated in your knowing that there's so much more for us,
Well,
right?
the other thing too is what the science practice these alpha state meditative experiences, and you can get there from, all the big five scientifically show that you can get to that alpha state, that relaxed state of consciousness. And one of the things that happens is the part of our brain that makes us feel isolated becomes diminished and less active when we practice these things. The part of our brain that makes us feel connected starts to get more activated and more functional. And then the stress and fear part of our brain gets physically smaller. And the empathy and compassion parts of our brain get physically larger. So if we were teaching this to public education, of course, we all need to be doing this in our own lives. And it doesn't matter where you are or where you've been or anything like that. You start today, just like I did when I got out of the hospital from my surgery. I just decided I'm just going to really you celebrate this life and this body and feeling it and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't matter where we're at, we can start now. But if we were getting this into public education, it would be creating a generation of more empathetic and compassionate people all around the planet. And the reason that we decided to use the United Nations General Assembly, not the bureaucracy of the UN, that's a sketchy thing. But the General Assembly, that's the democratic part of the United Nations, where each nation votes.
Right.
And in 2014, the United Nations General Assembly voted a resolution to create the International Day of Yoga, World Yoga Day, which was one of the days that changed global consciousness, like World Tai Chi and Qigong Day did. I think that World Tai Chi Day inspired that, to be honest with you, because we were like 14 years before that. And so, but anyway, what caught my attention when I saw that the UN had created that International Day of Yoga was that it passed with a record number of co-sponsoring nations. 177 co-sponsoring nations.
Yes.
Never before in the history of the United Nations General Assembly had the world come together over something like they did to promote yoga around the world for global peace and global harmony and health. And that's exactly what getting this into public education, just all of us, because the science is irrefutable. It would save trillions and trillions of dollars year after year after year. That would make sure my Social Security is still there. That
It's
would make
like
sure my kids' Social Security is there. You know
it's
what I mean?
suffering. Suffering is optional, and
Yeah.
that's what we're really talking about. Is that for those of us that work with all different age groups, and the empowerment aspect of this cannot be underestimated. And Bill, we are going to need to wrap up right now. we're a little over time actually. So I want to have you again. Could you please explain or share the World Tai Chi Day website?
Yes, if you just go to Google and put in World Tai Chi Day, the official site will pop right up to the top. But worldtaichiday.org, and you can go there, you can find events, you can look at the medical research. There's tons of things there to look at. And then also go to globaltransformationproject.org, where you can sign a petition. And once we get 100,000 signatures for the petition, me and Angie are going to volunteer ourselves to contact every United Nations mission in the world with the backing of your 100,000 signatures. Really, we think that we ought to be able to get millions of signatures. If all the people who've benefited from mind body start spreading this petition, we would have millions of signatures overnight.
Yeah.
Imagine how powerful it would be if we go to the United Nations mission with millions of signatures. You know, it's like I'm urging the mind body community, this is in your best interest. Some teachers think, well, I don't care about that. Well, wait a minute. What if what if your local public education system hired you to come in and teach kindergartners through 12th grade? Now, some people like to teach little kids, some people don't. They can teach high schoolers, you know, whatever. But, you know, that would be a nice extra income, and you'd be changing the planet. You'd be keeping kids out of prison, you know. I mean, what do we want to do with our lives here? You know,
Right,
the mind
right.
body community should be all over this. They should be spreading this petition, globaltransformationproject.org, like crazy. But all the science is there. You can be an ambassador for this. You can see all the science. It just with if you spend a couple hours on that site, you'd be able to go out and do interviews and tell people to go to globaltransformationproject.org and sign the petition. We could change the world.
Great. Okay, so for everyone, we'll have all the links in the description. And I really hope that you've enjoyed meeting Bill and learning more about all the opportunities you have to make the world a better place, live a happier life, have a lot more fun, and see what you do make a difference for everyone. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for what you do, Kathy. Thanks
Oh,
so
I
much.
love it. Love it. Thank you.